The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Rob Reiner was a brilliant actor and director. His wife, Michele Reiner, was an equally iconic photographer and producer. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson, along with Caleb Mason and Elizabeth Little, and Richard Jackson, appointed on behalf of Mr. Reiner, who's currently president of court in custody.
We are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date.
Did a medication adjustment play a role in the murders of Rob and Michele Reiner? This morning, we will break down the potential defense for Nick Reiner. A 14-year-old girl weighing only 35 pounds. Now, 4 adults face charges of child abuse. The shocking allegations from prosecutors. Plus, our 12 days of holiday crimes, focusing this morning on Scott Peterson, convicted of murdering his wife Lacey and unborn son. He's still looking for a new trial. It's all next, right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Ted Rollins in for Julie Grant. We're kicking off a holiday week here at Court TV. You know, most court houses are, well, they're open around the country, but not a lot going on. It's tough to pick a jury during these next couple weeks. But, you know, there's a few things going on, and we have lots to talk about today. The latest on Nick Reiner, where that defense might be going. There is this trickle of information coming out of Hollywood relating to those days and hours before Rob and Michele Reiner's death. Plus, we're going to be looking into the old Scott Peterson trial, plus that horrific starvation case. Lots to talk about, and there are a few things actually happening in courthouses and courtrooms across the country. So let's start off with our daily docket.
The alleged victim is a convicted felon. He's a fraudster. He alleged, and you can look in the arrest affidavit, it says possibly grazed by the bullet. We're alleging that there is a long history between my client and this gentleman.
In Florida, former All-Pro NFL receiver Antonio Brown is due in court this morning for a status hearing. He's accused of attempted murder for firing a gun at a man after a fight. Court begins there at 9:30 Eastern Time. In Massachusetts, there is a pretrial conference in the Gregory Groom case. He is accused of fatally shooting his pregnant girlfriend and burying her body on his family property. Court there begins at 9 o'clock Eastern. But we'll begin the hour in California. And Nick Reiner. He's facing life in prison, possibly the death penalty. It seems unlikely, but it's still on the table. You heard Nathan Hochman talking about it last week in that press conference. He allegedly killed his parents. Seems to be a mountain of evidence in terms of him being the person that stabbed them to death. But his mental health struggles could be a factor at trial. According to multiple reports, Nick Reiner, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia some years ago, had his medication changed or adjusted before the deaths of his parents. It's unclear if that medication change played a role in the case. Will it play a role in the defense? How could it all play out? We're going to discuss that in just a few moments. But first, here is Court TV's Michael Ayala with more on the murders of Rob and Michele Reiner.
Sunday, December 14th, around 3:30 p.m., Los Angeles firefighters responded to a 911 call at the Brentwood home of Hollywood filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele.
Upon arrival, they determined that there were 2 deceased individuals inside of the residence.
Rob Reiner, the son of comedy legend Carl Reiner, catapulted to fame in the 1970s as Michael Stivic, Archie Bunker's hippie son-in-law on the hit television series All in the Family.
All right, put it there.
He went on to become a prolific director of such films as This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, and When Harry Met Sally.
I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
Reiner and his wife, Hollywood producer Michele Singer Reiner, were found in their home fatally stabbed. The Reiner family confirmed the deaths in a statement posted on Variety.com. It is with profound sorrow that we announce the tragic passing of Michele and Rob Reiner. We are heartbroken by this sudden loss, and we ask for privacy during this unbelievably difficult time. The Reiners married in 1989 and had 3 children together, sons Jake, Nick, and daughter Romy. Nick Reiner has spoken openly through the years about his issues with drug addiction and homelessness. In 2016, he appeared in this clip, currently circulating on social media, with his father. It was a panel discussion promoting the movie Being Charlie, which was partially inspired by Rob Reiner's experiences parenting Nick.
The whole process for me, I can just speak for myself, it did make me understand him a lot more, and I think it made me a better father. Hopefully it did. If your kid is going through rough times, you know, the parent is, your main job is to keep your child safe.
As police, media, and onlookers converged on the home, sightings were reported of Reiner's friends and collaborators, Larry David and Billy Crystal. Tributes poured in from Hollywood and beyond. Carrie Elwes, who starred in Reiner's cult classic The Princess Bride, posted no words. Jerry O'Connell was one of the child actors featured in Stand By Me, and he tweeted, "Love you, Rob, sincerely." Former President Barack Obama wrote in part, "Beneath all of the stories he produced was a deep belief in the goodness of people and a lifelong commitment to putting that belief in action."
So the question this morning, how could that report of a possible adjustment in Nick Reiner's schizophrenia medication play a role? Will it play a role? Could it play a role if you're Alan Jackson defending Nick Reiner? Here to discuss, former prosecutor and attorney Tommy Pope and criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci. Good morning, gentlemen. Mario, to you first. We're getting little bits of information, and not sure where it's coming from, but this is a playbook that a lot of high-profile cases has. You know, leak a little bit out in the media before you jump all the way in. What's your take on this latest report about the medication changing, and that would that matter in a case like this?
So it looks like Alan Jackson is going for an NGRI, or a not guilty by reason of insanity defense. And medication would play a very big role in that. So the first thing he would need to do is he's going to hire a doctor to evaluate him and to see if he actually has a diagnosis for a mental disease or defect, then find out the type of medication he was on, and then hire an expert to testify that the change in medication changed him. And as a result of that, he's not guilty for this crime because he didn't have the mental capacity to understand what he was doing. It's a very, very difficult defense to pull off, especially in light of the actions that this young man took after he allegedly committed these crimes. You know, the consciousness of guilt, the being able to flee, the fact that they haven't found a murder weapon, all indicate that at some point he did know what he was doing. And that's what makes a not guilty by reason of insanity defense very, very difficult to accomplish.
Tommy, to that point, take us through, if you would, and every state's different. California actually is probably the best state if you're going to go down this road. But what does it take to be successful in a not guilty by reason of insanity defense?
You know, I think your first step is with the prosecution. I probably over my career had one, maybe two that I just flat agreed with. You know, you saw it. I had a guy that set his house on fire, and he believed he was setting an altar to the Lord. Unfortunately, his mother was in the house, and that was the one exception. And, you know, of course, what happens in that case is, you know, you're not incarcerated, you're treated until doctors say you could be released. So there's some concerns. You're going to mix in here, Ted, the fact that it's family, and that can cut both ways too. I had a young man that killed both his parents and really had eliminated all of his family, because you want victim input on how you tackle it. But going back to what Mario said, the first thing I would look to disprove if I'm in the courtroom is the steps he takes. In South Carolina, it's basically knowing legal and moral right from legal and moral wrong. So you can act like a madman, stab the whole family, but then get in the car and drive across town and stop at every traffic light and, obey traffic laws and things that show that you're lucid, because true insanity is literally, as I heard one expert explain it, I'm literally thinking this TV screen is an antelope or just, totally out there. And oftentimes that's not it. But, we have to distinguish too, juries. Anybody that commits something like this, something's wrong with them. The question is whether they need to be held accountable in the system, and that's where you dig down behind it. And so my point being is prosecution seeking justice, sometimes you're working with the defense if everybody agrees that that's where it's at, and sometimes you're having to disprove, whether it's with your own doctor to match what Mario said, or just by using the facts.
Here's Alan Jackson talking about the case, saying it's very complex.
This is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. We all recognize that. Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. These need to be thoroughly, but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. We ask that during this process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward. Not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves.
Mario, do you think that Alan Jackson is going to pursue the potential that his client is not fit to stand trial early on here?
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably the first thing he's going to do is have him evaluated to see if he can help in his defense. If he can't help in his defense, then, the case, at least in New York and New Jersey, would be held in abeyance until he becomes helpful and sane enough to participate in his defense. I had a case going back years ago, same scenario, where my client killed both of his parents, and he was unfit for trial for over 2 years. And then, doctors found him fit, and we went to trial. We actually tried that case twice. So the first thing he needs to do is evaluate whether or not his client is fit to proceed with trial and help in his defense.
Tommy, you prosecuted Susan Smith. A lot of people from the outside, that woman's crazy. You don't kill children without being crazy. Why wasn't she able to get over that bar, and why did you prosecute her so zealously?
Well, so the first thing happened, you look at everything surrounding it, the fact even that, she's at a house right after she rolls them in the lake, she's concocted a story, which, again, as strange as that sounds, is part of lucidity and whether you're able to tell a story that's something, that is logical but didn't happen. And so the interesting thing for me in South Carolina, we were always strapped, and it's changed a little bit, we were always strapped with using the state hospital doctor, which was almost always favorable toward the defense. They took a different view of the world than I guess us prosecutors did. And I'd never had this happen going to competency to stand trial. Everybody expected poor Susan, the narrative had changed from Susan the monster to poor Susan. They expected her to testify. The state hospital doctor, which stinks for the prosecution because they call it our doctor, came at the behest of the defense to say Susan was competent to stand trial, but she was not competent to testify because she was so remorseful, she would ask for the death penalty. Of course, when we had the bomb threat, Susan ran out of the courtroom real quick. She could have stayed in with me if she really was wanting to seek death. So it was manufactured, which then puts me in the position of questioning all, the psychological sciences because they use it as a ruse.
And you were successful there with that prosecution. We'll see how the Reiner case develops. We'll get a break. Still ahead on opening statements. 4 adults face child neglect charges. This story is a It's a head scratcher. It is a heartbreaker. Teenage girl, 35 pounds. We're going to break down the evidence that was presented at a probable cause hearing against one of the defendants. That's next. And our 12 days of crime focuses to this guy this morning, Scott Peterson. He still wants his murder conviction overturned 23 years almost after his wife, Lacey, went missing. Stay with us.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Trending in true crime this morning, one of the defendants in a Wisconsin child starvation case is headed to trial. Savannah Lefevre appeared in court via Zoom with her attorney on Friday. The judge ruled the case would proceed to Superior Court. No arraignment date has been set yet. Lefevre, along with 3 other adults, face horrible charges for nearly starving to death a 14-year-old teenage girl. The child is the daughter of the male in this photo. His name is Walter Goodman. He actually called 911 asking for help when his daughter became, quote, sick and comatose. Here's what happened in court on Friday.
Attorney Hogan, would your conversations with her support that she understands the rights she's waiving here today?
Yes.
All right, I'll make that finding. I've reviewed the criminal complaint. There's sufficient information within it for the matter to be bound over. That's just a word we use, Ms. Lefevre, to mean that it's going to continue in the criminal court system. We'll call Judge Rein with Branch 4 to get an arraignment date. I don't know if her assistant's around or not. Oh, so someone's covering, we're trying the covering judicial assistant. They're not around either. So Mr. Hogan will forward the file to Branch 4 to schedule an arraignment date. Anything else today, Ms. Tempelis?
No, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Hogan?
I can state for the record, and I don't know how Branch 4 does or conducts arraignments, but I did speak with Ms. Lefevre, and she is willing to waive her right for personal appearance for the arraignment at that time.
We don't allow, because it's entering a plea on a felony case, so we wouldn't allow her personal appearance to be waived. Misdemeanors, you can submit a written submission about a plea, but not on a felony.
Okay, I just wanted to note that for the record that she was willing to waive her personal appearance.
For pretrials, probably Ms. Lefevre, but I think for arraignments on a felony, it would be like, imagine an initial appearance in court, Commissioner. We wouldn't allow someone to waive their right to appear on a felony offense. So they'll just log you in again, Ms. Lefevre, when that arraignment date is.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Attorney Hogan?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Tempelis?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Then we are adjourned.
Okay, that was it for that hearing. All 4 of these individuals, these adults, face chronic child neglect charges. Question this morning, how did this happen? How did this child slip through the cracks? Let's talk about it. Criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci still with us, and former director of family and children's services in the state of Georgia, Tom Rawlings, joins us this morning. Tom, good morning to you. I want to start with you. This is a heartbreaking case because this little girl was in dire straits when finally hospitalized, weighing 35 pounds when she was removed from that home, 14 years old, where it's horrific. Your take, how does this happen?
Well, good morning, Jeff. So a couple of things here. The record notes that her mother went to jail back in 2020 or so. And that's when she came to live with the father, who, by the way, appears to have been living with at least 2 morbidly obese individuals. I don't think food was a problem in that household. What was a problem was this child was placed with people who did not care for her. I think she apparently had some issues related to autism. It didn't appear to be terribly severe, but it appears that they just developed a dislike for her, a hatred for her. And, you know, they, according to what I've read, they didn't really go anywhere. They stayed in the house all the time. They had deliveries made. And so they were able to, over the course of between the pandemic, child being out of school, no one seeing the child. They were able to basically neglect and possibly, I would call it almost torture this child over the course of several years. It's a horrible thing. And you have to ask why no one else in the community stepped up and saw this. Was the child hidden, or was there just simply no one who cared for her?
Yeah, well, we understand she was kept in a bedroom. Here's what we know. 14 years old, weighed 35 pounds when she was removed from the home. She's recovering, thankfully, with relatives. When taken into the hospital, she was suffering from dehydration, multiple organ dysfunction, pancreatitis. The girl's eyes reportedly lit up when she was told she'd get 3 meals a day at the hospital. The last time she saw a doctor was in 2020. She hadn't been attending school since then, kept locked in this bedroom with a video camera on her. They were monitoring her via a camera. According to investigators, the adults here all charged here. And Mario, some cases get your blood boiling. And boy, this is one of them.
This is very difficult case to defend. I mean, I agree. This is not only starvation. Seems like a torture. For some reason, these people had such disdain for this young lady that they basically not only tortured her, but watched her be tortured. So, I mean, if this case walked into my office, I'd first have to look to see what kind of, mental status these 4 people have, what's going on in that house that allowed 4 people. We're not talking about 1 or 2. We're talking about 4 people who agreed to torture this young lady and keep her hidden from people. The next door neighbor didn't even know they had a child. The neighbor reported seeing deliveries from Walmart, food deliveries coming 2 or 3 times a day, and no interaction with these people whatsoever. But their complete disdain for this child it's abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent.
Tom, in your experience, have you seen a situation where 4 adults, I mean, they're obviously not very bright bulbs, all would, it seems like, the child abuse, you hear it, it's usually 1, maybe 2 parents, but 4, have you ever come across 4 actual adults all involved in something as disgusting as this?
Well, unfortunately, I have. It's rare, but for example, we had down here in southeast Georgia, where I live, we had a situation where a number of adults abused children and actually buried them in the backyard and all helped each other cover it up. If you look at this group, they look like they're just, I don't know how else to say it. They are birds of a feather. They have flocked together, but they are, I think the pictures we see of them are probably reflective of both their mental state and perhaps even something deeper and darker. The other issue, I think, is how on earth was this child placed with these people and why? Who, was social services involved? Would the mother just drop the child off with the father when she went to jail? Why did no one else on her side of the family intervene in the last 4 years?
Mario, social services was definitely during COVID an issue. We saw this play out in the Montgomery case. Little Harmony Montgomery was abused and then eventually murdered by her father. It really did put things back because of the fear of COVID, of going into homes both ways. People didn't want anyone coming into their homes, and I'm sure, the public servants didn't want to go around either because of the fear of COVID. This could play a part in it. Is this going to be, in terms of looking back of how did this happen up there in Wisconsin? But still, what about the defense on this? They're all being charged, it sounds like, individually. If you were defending one of them, what would you be looking for?
I would try to make my client the least culpable. Try to show that maybe this was an orchestrated effort by 1 or 2 of them, that they had some sort of Svengali hold over the other participants in this, that my client was unwittingly engaged in this because of whatever, hold this one person had or both people had over them. I mean, we don't know a lot of the facts in this case, but initially, I mean, that's something I would look at if I was representing one of them, to make my person the least culpable out of them. Maybe say that he did his best or she did his best to make sure that the child was taken care of. We got to see what the facts of this case as they come out. I mean, right now, this is it's a horrible, horrible, horrible case.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll continue to monitor it here on Court TV. Gentlemen, stay where you are. We're going to get a break. Still ahead on opening statements are 12 days of crime, focusing this morning on Scott Peterson and his quest to overturn his murder conviction nearly 23 years ago after murdering his wife, Lacey. And later, we'll take a look at what's tipping the scales in a custody battle assault case. Former cop Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Stay with us.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Christmas Eve, 2002, 27-year-old Lacey Peterson goes missing. 8 months pregnant with her first child. They already named him, a little boy by the name of Connor. Her disappearance sparked a massive search, not only in Northern California, but across the country. And it went on for months. 4 months later, the remains of Lacey and her baby washed up along the shore of the San Francisco Bay, and her husband, Scott Peterson, was arrested days later. As his trial began, he maintained his innocence.
Is that correct, Mr. Peterson? You're pleading not guilty to the 2 charges of murder plus the special denying the special allegations?
Absolutely. That's correct, Your Honor. I'm innocent.
Our Scott Peterson, next to his attorney, Mark Garagos, there was in Stanislaus County, in that courtroom. I was in that courtroom that day. Peterson was convicted, of course, of 2 counts of murder in 2004, received a death sentence. That was overturned. He's now serving a life sentence, a life without parole sentence, but he wants a new trial, saying that there is new evidence that has come to light. Joining us now, crime scene investigator Cheryl McCullum and criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci still with us. All right, Cheryl, this case, it captured the attention of a lot of people, and I had a front row seat to it. I covered it from the very beginning and through the trial. There was a lot of evidence, but it was circumstantial. In fact, the prosecutor, Rick DeStasso, got up and told the jury, we don't know when he killed her. We don't know how he killed her. We just know he did. What stood out to you as the most compelling bit of evidence against Scott Peterson, which led to his conviction?
There was so much, but I think for me, where the bodies showed up, in that bay, the exact same place he said he was fishing. I mean, what are the odds that somebody's going to kidnap a woman who is 8 months pregnant on Christmas Eve? And when he originally said he was golfing, but then changed it, no, I was fishing, and they wind up in the exact same location.
That was a huge part of the deal. In fact, without those remains, Mario, you could argue that they wouldn't have gone to trial because she and Connor both washed up along the shore over a couple-day period after a storm there in the bay. The defense had an answer for everything. So for that question, the defense answer was, well, yes, you people told the world where Scott was. And so the people, the robbers across the street, kidnapped Lacey, and they, of course, they would dump her in the San Francisco Bay because that would frame Scott Peterson. The problem for the defense overall is that they had an answer for everything, but there were just too many things over time, and the jury just didn't buy it at the end of the day. Your overall thoughts of this case now, more than 20 years later?
So, Ted, we call this, I call this, when it's a circumstantial evidence case, the cumulative effect. So, as a defense attorney, you have, obstacles generally in a trial. In this case, everything was an obstacle. And when you look at the evidence, he was having an affair with, I believe, a woman, Amber Fry. I think that had come out. He bought a fishing boat that he didn't tell anybody about very close to the time of the murder. He was out fishing the day that they went missing. He had a warehouse that I believe had cement molds in it, molds that would be used to weigh down something, and could be used to weigh down something in the water. So, you know, every single time you turned around, there was another piece of evidence against Scott. So, it's very difficult to get over that hump in a circumstantial evidence case when you have so much circumstantial evidence. It's like the large jigsaw puzzle, and when they have every single piece to the puzzle and they can complete it, you have a problem.
The trial itself, as it played out, the biggest piece, the one that really locked with the jury, was Amber Frey, because she got up and told the story of their meeting, their affair, and one of the things that she talked about was the fact that he told her before Lacey went missing that this was going to be the first holidays spent without his wife, predicting her death, basically, to this woman that he'd only been dating for a bit. First, let's listen to a little of Scott and Amber, because she worked with cops and recorded those conversations. Then we'll talk about her.
I just need to tell you how much I care about you. That you got so much to be, for the rest of our lives. You're your best friend, your biggest comfort, the second most joy in your life. I want to see those things so bad for you.
Cheryl, in the courtroom, that was just, everybody looked over at the defense table. The jury looked over. I mean, he is a scoundrel, the way he was acting during this period when his wife was missing and the world was looking for her. What effect did Amber Frey have on the case, in your opinion?
Amber Frey was nothing but a hero in this whole thing. Not only was she able to tell when they met, what he told her. When he said his wife had died, this was before her remains were found in April. So was he clairvoyant? How did he know that was going to be the case? He knew because he did it. The other thing Amber Frey did, we didn't just have to take her word for it. She wore a wire so we could hear the exchanges between the two of them and the lies that he told.
Yeah. Oh, and he was telling some doozies. He's basically at a vigil. Everybody's looking for his wife, and he's claiming he's in Paris celebrating the New Year, and I wish you were here. It was sad, very sad. Mario, what about his appeal? Now, there has always been this robbery across the street, which is very, it is eyebrow raising, because there were these people that were across the street breaking into the Mendoza house, and Lacey was walking the dog, according to some eyewitnesses. I talked to a few of these people. They were convinced it was Lacey walking her dog. There were a lot of things that did make you think he might not have done this. Now they claim they've got some new evidence. Some of it's been redacted, but it's in the hands of the high court. What are his realistic chances?
I don't think he's got any shot, but you're serving life in prison. What else do you have to do but try to appeal? I mean, they have the DNA with the duct tape, and as we all know, every single year DNA gets better and better. Science comes further and further, so you're always going to test that. We still have the open issue with that one juror. I forget her name, but there was the one juror that they had an issue with the questionnaire. I mean, I know the lower court denied that appeal, but the higher court is still considering whether that juror misconduct was an issue. You have the burglary. There's a number of things he's trying. What else are you going to do? You're not just going to give up. So whatever he's going to try to do, he's going to try to do to get out of jail. Nobody wants to stay in jail, but I really do not see him having any realistic appeal here.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle, obviously. Rochelle Nice is the juror. She did, you could argue, act inappropriately during that questioning. And then the Aponte tapes, that's another interesting one, where there's a recorded phone call that went missing. It go on and on, all the different conspiracy theories. Your thoughts, Cheryl, on his chances? And is there any doubt, you've watched this case, looked at it, researched it. Is there any doubt in your mind that he did it and it wasn't the guys across the street?
No doubt in my mind he did it, and he doesn't stand a shot. He has failed every time he's tried this. And let's not forget, after all is said and done, the last thing he does, he gets $15,000 cash, dyes his hair, grabs his brother's driver's license, and is trying to flee. He also tries to sell her car and their house. That is not the acts of an innocent man.
No. Again, there's an answer to every one of those things. He dyed his hair because the media was after him. He wasn't running from anybody. He had his brother's license because he wanted a discount at Torrey Pines and golf course. All of it, yeah, but it all stacked up against him. And he upgraded his porn channel after Lacey went missing and he was living at the house. He went to the XXX version.
Priorities, Ted, right? I mean, he had to get his priorities right.
We'll continue tomorrow. We're going to actually talk about more about this tomorrow. We'll get a break now. Coming up, a former police officer accused of pointing her gun at a fellow officer, but she said she never meant to harm anybody. It was going to harm herself. We're going to take a look at this one after the break.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Now for what is tipping the scales, it's a custody battle assault case. Kelsey Fitzsimmons is the defendant. She appeared in court on Friday briefly for a hearing. The 29-year-old is charged with assault with a dangerous weapon after several officers showed up at her home to serve her with a restraining order. Her fiancé had been granted an abuse prevention order after an alleged incident where Fitzsimmons physically assaulted him the weekend before. Her defense says the new mother was just suffering from postpartum depression and had not meant to do anything bad except harm herself that day, not anybody else. Before we talk about it, here's Court TV anchor Judge Ashley Wilcott with more.
Kelsey Fitzsimmons, once a dedicated police officer in the Boston area, is now accused of breaking the law in an alleged assault against a fellow cop.
All the Commonwealth has to do is ask the officers. There's 4 officers that were at the scene.
Officers were at the home of Fitzsimmons in June. They were serving her with a restraining order that included removing her baby after her fiancé claimed she assaulted him and feared for his and their baby's safety. According to the prosecutors, while Fitzsimmons was gathering some of her son's things, Officer Noonan observed the defendant face him, lunge behind the door, and reappear, pointing a firearm directly at him. The defendant pulled the trigger and he heard a click, but no round fired. The officer at the scene then shot Fitzsimmons in the chest. Fitzsimmons was subsequently charged with assault with a dangerous weapon. Fitzsimmons claims she wasn't trying to hurt anyone but herself. She says she had been suffering from postpartum depression and in a statement said this: "My firearm was never pointed in any direction other than my temple. When I pulled the trigger, my gun did not fire. However, I immediately got shot in the chest." Meanwhile, Fitzsimmons is in custody locked up while she awaits her trial. Her bond was revoked after allegedly failing to comply with alcohol testing. She says the injury to her chest made it too difficult to use a breathalyzer. Her defense is appealing the decision to a higher court, and now, in front of a different judge, a plan.
She's in custody, so if the case is tried and she's found not guilty, that's the end of it. If the case is tried and she's found guilty, that's a whole other issue. But the fairest thing, it seems to me, is to try the case as promptly as we can.
Okay, so we'll continue to monitor this case. It's an interesting one. Joining us now is former director of the Department of Family and Children's Services in Georgia. Tom Rawlings is still with us, along with Tommy Pope. Tom, we got 2 of you, Rawlings. This is this postpartum is a real thing. We see it come up from time to time. In your work, how prevalent was it? How potentially devastating could it be, a mother that is suffering from this known ailment?
Well, thanks. And, you know, I feel some empathy for this young lady. In fact, the police went over there before because she was having a significant mental health issue that was apparently related to postpartum. In addition to that, you know, we know because she was put on the requirement to do the breathing for the alcohol test, that she apparently also had some significant alcohol or abuse issues. So I think what we're dealing with here is a young woman who has apparently obviously achieved a lot, became a police officer, graduated college, got engaged, had a baby, but for whatever reason, she apparently really has some significant mental health issues. And to me, the questions are not only what happened that night when they went to serve the warrant for the restraining order, rather, but also, you know, what did the mental health officials in North Andover, in that area, do to help her when she was obviously having some significant mental health struggles?
Tommy, as far as the defense goes, it's a pretty difficult story to get a jury to believe when it's your version of it, when you may or may not have, but it sounds like, been under the influence of alcohol and you're depressed, against officers who are eyewitnesses, that they say the gun was pointed and she clicked. She says it was pointed at herself and clicked. This is not going to look good for her because they're going to believe the other officers who were sober and there were more than one.
You know, and I think you've even got the relationship that she was with the party, you know, so with the police department. So you got to say, why in the world would they ever want any bad will toward, you know, a fellow officer? And I'm assuming there's going to be body cam video. I don't know. That'll answer the question. Normally my answer on the suicide attempt is it's amazing how people are always successful killing others, but can't seem to pull it off for themselves. With the gun clicking, that adds an additional element that probably gives her a little bit of room in there. But, you know, I guess, again, I don't do defense work, but I would argue that, you know, the police are trying to cover up for the fact they shot her and shouldn't have. But, you know, what this really tells me, Ted, is I see it all the time. Somebody can get too many parking tickets. Next thing they knew, they've lost their license. Next thing they know, they're driving without a license. It's like this spiral. And so using this context, one thing begets another, you know, because the fact they're coming over there with the restraining order tells us things have happened. Obviously, you just talked about it. Tom talked about it previously. And so it's almost, you know, one piles on another and you look around. What's the thing when you get to the bottom, just quit digging? When you're digging yourself in a hole, and it just seems like she's gotten deeper and deeper.
Yeah. I mean, more believable defense would have been I tried to commit suicide by cop because I was a cop. I knew that an empty gun, but if I clicked it, they would shoot me. Well, that story sells. The other one, I don't know. Gentlemen.
Your defense work, Ted.
Appreciate both of your times. Have a great holiday. As always, appreciate your time. We're going to get a break. That's it for Opening Statement.
That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.